Joining me via Zoom to give his perspective on this is Public Affairs Analyst Jide Uju. Thank you for joining.
It's my pleasure. Good evening. Happy Workers' Day and Happy New Month.
All right, thank you very much for being here. With the alleged discrepancies of unauthorized deductions discovered in the disbursement of student loans from both the institutions and banks, what is the best way to tackle this particular issue by the ICPC, and how do you think the students can be compensated if those deductions have been, seen as valid?
Okay, so I read the report with mixed feelings, and I'm very concerned because this issue of student loan scheme is one of the cardinal objectives and programs of the Tinubu administration, which he claimed as a legacy project. And it comes with a rude shock that ICPC in its investigation claimed that over 200 billion has been received by NEL Fund and only 44 billion has been disbursed. And some 51 institutions have been fingered to deduct unauthorized in an unauthorized manner between 3,000 and 30,000 as administration fee. This goes to show that unless there is a proper tracking metrics, proper monitoring and evaluation metrics, issues of loan disbursement, even conditional cash transfer disbursement will always be a sticky one. Recall that we have had similar controversies in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs over issues around conditional cash transfer that was allegedly disbursed to the vulnerable groups. Even now on the homegrown school feeding program, we have had similar controversy, as well as the graduate employment scheme. So without a proper monitoring and evaluation metrics, this issue will continue to crumble. This what the Ministry of Education is trying to do now is what should have been put in place right from the beginning before the disbursement. This is a program that is almost 2 years old, but you can see there is even a very low disbursement. From what I read in the Guardian newspaper, over 200 billion has been purportedly given to NEL Fund, but out of this 200 billion, only 44 billion has been disbursed. And if you look at that ratio, there's a lot of discrepancy, and that's why ICPC is probing further what is the authentic position. But it is not just enough to refute claims that this is not happening. I don't know whether NEL Fund itself also have a tracking mechanism to ensure the adequate compliance by the beneficiary institutions. Because if there is a tracking mechanism put in place, a kind of dashboard that monitors what goes to each institutions and how many students are supposed to benefit and how many has actually had their accounts credited, this will have laid to rest all this controversy about disbursement, number of people who have benefited, how much has been disbursed, and all of that.
All right. With a lot of students potentially benefiting from this loan disbursement, and you talking about tracking, those, disbursements, how can it be ensured that there's transparency and accountability from both institutions and banks as well, and NEL Fund as well?
You see, those who you need to monitor in this whole scheme are not just the institutions. You need to monitor the disbursing agency. From the look of things, it's not just NEL Fund that disburse this money. The NEL Fund works in conjunction with the Central Bank of Nigeria, with the Office of Accountant General, with the Ministry of Finance, with the banks of the beneficiary institutions, and then you talk about the vice chancellors of institutions. So it's a long value chain that needs to be tracked, and it's not just, you are not going to get appropriate records from just NEFON. NEFON will say, this is how much from our own end we have disbursed. But the banks, the Office of the Accountant General, did they cash back those the schedule that was sent to them? The Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank of Nigeria, even the beneficiary banks, who bears the cost of transaction? Because I know banks, if you are going to make a transaction, a withdrawal from the banks, they are going to charge you some administrative fee. No matter how, and then this whole issue of charging students between 3,000 and 30,000, what is it meant for? Was this approved at the beginning? Was there even an induction? I know that this is not the first time we are having student loans. It was there during the First and Second Republic, but it has long been stopped. So the memory of how these things should be done is no longer there. Even NEFON has just been newly established, so there is going to be some teething problems. But we must not jump to conclusion that money has been stolen. The impression created in the media space is that, oh, 100 billion was approved, only 21 billion was disbursed.
Absolutely.
But if you read deeply, at least I read the Guardian version of it, you will see that the headlines does not tally with what the ICPC found. ICPC, as I said earlier on, found out that over 200 billion has been earmarked for NEFON, but only 44 billion was disbursed in the last 2 years. And that is where there is a lot of discrepancies, and that's why I'm saying there should have been proper framework for tracking, matrix, monitoring and evaluation framework that will have involved not just NEFON, but civil society organizations with media, you understand, oversighting, even the relevant committees of the National Assembly, like the Committee on Education in the House of Reps, Committee on Education in the Senate. They should have worked together to oversee how this whole disbursement is going, rather than having this fire brigade approach of people who are supposed to have received their money not getting it, and then missing out on school. Because this whole essence, sorry, let me land on this thought. This whole essence, the whole essence of having student loan scheme was to be sure that no student drops out of school as a result of not having money to pay for his tuition. And now, if there is a late disbursement and a child drops out of school, the whole essence of applying for that loan has been defeated. So there is a lot of angles to this whole story and to this whole mix, which needs to be sorted out.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us today and for your time, Jide Ojo.
It's my pleasure. Do enjoy your workers' holiday.